How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Not baseball, at least in this episode, but we will be covering the NFL today. Something I wanted to get into that's been making news for the past few weeks. Past few weeks, but has heated up as of late with recent news, and that is star defensive player for the Dallas Cowboys, Micah Parsons, requesting a trade. And this is during the whole process of trying to get a new contract. He wants to be the highest paid defensive player. I mean, so many guys have gotten that contract this offseason. Most recently we had TJ Watt getting paid, becoming the highest paid non quarterback in NFL history. And then, of course, you had Myles Garrett getting paid. A lot of defensive players getting paid. We're still waiting on Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals, whether he's going to get paid or not. I mean, he's going to get paid. It's just, where is he going to be? Is he going to be with the Bengals, or is he going to end up somewhere else? That's something the Bengals have to iron out. And, the way their defense played last season, you kind of want to keep him around, right? That's losing your star defensive player when you have a defense that wasn't very good last year. It's not good. But they had a lot of guys that they paid. There were two wide receivers they paid this offseason. But with the Cowboys, Jerry Jones has his fingerprints all over this, right? So back in March, him, meaning Jerry Jones, and Micah Parsons, supposedly they did agree on a contract, a verbal agreement. But since then, things have changed, and now that's off the table. Now, Micah Parsons' agent wasn't supposedly involved when they agreed verbally on this contract, but now it seems like the agent got involved. I guess maybe Micah Parsons went back to the agent, they went over it, and now all of a sudden it's off the table. So now we're kind of just in a standoff. And he's not holding out, he's holding in. He's still at practice, but he's on the sidelines, and he's not participating. And Jerry Jones and Micah have not spoken since Micah Parsons requested a trade. He put out a statement on social media basically saying that he doesn't want to play for Dallas anymore. Now, for me, initially, I would maybe say, well, I guess the bridges are burned. Micah Parsons is going to end up somewhere else. But go back to the Myles Garrett situation, right? He requested a trade, and, when he was on the Rich Eisen show and he talked about wanting to win a championship and, all this stuff about, no amount of money is going to, make him want to stay in Cleveland. Then all of a sudden, Browns gave him a big contract and he just couldn't refuse it, and he's still with the Browns. So I do feel like here that's going to happen. Now, I think the relationship does need some fixing. The bridge is kind of burning right now between the two sides. And it's really, I think it's more so on Jerry Jones as opposed to Micah Parsons. Like, Micah Parsons wants to get paid, obviously. But when you hear Jerry Jones speak, it's really all around his timeline, and when he feels like it's the right time to pony up. Or it could be he's waiting for Micah Parsons to cave in and, take a discount or whatever. But Micah Parsons doesn't want to take any kind of discount. He wants to be the highest paid defensive player in the league. And I think, eventually it's going to happen. But here's the problem, everybody. And this is with the Cowboys as a whole. So I did bring up the Bengals briefly. And this is what's going to kind of plague the Bengals, I feel, is you can't have three players making up more than half of your salary cap. Because the Bengals, with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, they're all paid now. And they're, again, coming off of a season where their defense was not good. I was under the impression that Jamar Chase was going to get paid, T. Higgins was going to get paid, but he was going to get paid elsewhere. But he ends up staying with the Bengals. But now, it's going to affect the defense because, you couldn't go and make more moves in free agency. Now, they did make moves in the draft, but, now that you got all these players making all this money on one side of the ball, and it's just three players, it's going to set your defense back, even more so, potentially. because now you still got to pay Trey Hendrickson as well. And it's the same thing with the Cowboys. Dak Prescott, $60 million contract last year, right? CeeDee Lamb, I think $34 million a year with his contract. And now Micah Parsons, you're going to add another $40 million. You know, that's going to hurt your roster. And it seems like Jerry Jones already has some buyer's remorse with the contracts that he gave out to those guys last year because, CeeDee Lamb got hurt. Dak Prescott missed half the year with the hamstring injury, a large portion of the year. So there's definitely a part of him that's probably saying to himself, well, if I give Micah Parsons a contract, there's a chance he misses time. And he missed time last year with injury as well. So, but it is a tough situation because, Micah Parsons is, again, one of the best defensive players in the league. And you don't have him all of this year. Your defense is going to suffer because of it, right? I think the depth behind, Micah Parsons, you kind of worry about that. So, and he's a generational player. You don't want to lose that. But at the same time, you give him a big contract and you're just adding on to the cap. We go back to the 3 players thing where it's just you got another player that's making so much money. 3 players making up more than 50% of your cap. That's outrageous. But that's going to be where we're headed. And Jerry Jones basically said, he's not confident that Micah Parsons is going to play week 1 against the Eagles. You need him. You need him, right? And that's the thing. The Cowboys, for a long time, they've kind of been comfortable in this NFC East because for a while, for some years, it was the NFC least, right? And the Cowboys, in some years, they dominated this division. The other teams weren't very good. Washington hasn't been good for many years. The Giants are still trying to get themselves back up, and I think they're going to be better this year. And, there were some down years for the Eagles, but, they've won they've been to 3 Super Bowls the last, 8 years? Over the last 8 years, and they've won 2 of them. And they could have very won 3. But now Washington's better. The Eagles look like they're trying to, ramp up and repeat as champions, right? So, the division is not a layup like it used to be. Right now, again, going into this season, Cowboys, for some people, they might still have them as like the 3rd best team in the division and have Washington ranked over them. And Philadelphia, I think, is the clear number 1 at the top. Giants are the clear number 4 team for a lot of people, and, myself included, even as a Giant fan. So, you don't want to lose that player on that side of the ball because you're going to need that player to get after the quarterbacks in this division, Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts. And now you do add Russell Wilson to that group to a lesser extent. But teams are better in your division than they have been in years past. So, it's a tough division to be in. It is. Now, you could see a regression from Jaden Daniels. You could see that. Maybe the Eagles have, a Super Bowl hangover. That's possible. Oh, I don't think so. The roster is just loaded, and they are going to be at the top of that division. I still believe that. And the Cowboys, look, they added George Pickens this offseason. You add that wide receiver 2 to CeeDee Lamb. Maybe the running game is better. You had a couple of running backs, through the free agency, the draft. You added a former Eagle, Miles Sanders, who was not very good with the Panthers. They signed Javonte Williams. You drafted Jaden Blue. So maybe the running game is better. But that offensive line, that stone wall that you used to have, it's not there anymore. Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, all those guys, they're all gone. It's and that offensive line was very good back in the day. But now, it's a new era for that offensive line. And the defense has good players on the team. You still got some guys back there, Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, but Micah Parsons, we saw DeMarcus Lawrence leaving free agency and join Seattle, but Micah Parsons, you need him. So it really is a tough situation. I believe that they're going to figure things out. Even with him saying I don't want to be here anymore, whatever. I think they're going to come to an agreement. But, again, it's going to come under Jerry Jones's timeline, in my opinion. You don't want this, though, to leak into the regular season, which, the season is less than a month away. And they open up the season. They open up in Philadelphia. Now, if you remember, the season opener a couple years ago, the Lions and the Chiefs, Chris Jones was up in a suite watching the game. He didn't play in week 1. And then the Chiefs were able to come to an agreement with him, and he was back on the field. So that could be a scenario where that, happens, where he misses the first game, and then all of a sudden you're like, we need Micah Parsons back, and then you cave in and you pay him. So I guess it would be different if he was not there at all, but the fact that he is there, they want to get something done. And I think they will figure it out. It's the Cowboys and, all the players like Dak Prescott, I think, put something out on social media. The players, obviously there's only so much they could say when you got the media asking them questions about the whole process. They all want Micah Parsons suiting up and playing for this team week 1. So, I mean, if you're a fan of the NFC East, you're hoping that's not the case and he ends up going somewhere else. I mean, there are plenty of teams out there that would love to trade for him. I wouldn't see. I don't see him if he was. Well, I don't see him getting traded at all. But I don't see if he was to be traded, it's not going to be within the division. I mean, just imagine if he ended up with Washington or hey, listen, Abdul Carter and Micah Parsons, 2 Penn State guys. That would be I'll take that. But I think it's going to be it's going to be out of the division or different conference. But that's just if things really get ugly. And if he doesn't cave into the money. But we've seen money talks. Myles Garrett saw with TJ Watt when things were a little ugly between him and the Steelers. But again, I was confident that they were going to get a deal done. TJ Watt's the face of the franchise. Micah Parsons is one of the faces of this franchise. So they're going to get it done. But it's really going to hurt the Cowboys when it comes to just filling out the rest of this roster in future years. I mean, they could figure. I mean, they'll be able to maneuver some money and move things around, but it's just, yeah. I mean, look, I don't think Dak Prescott is worth $60 million a year, but that's just what the market was. CeeDee Lamb is one of the top receivers in the league, so I don't really have a problem with that. I don't look at Dak Prescott as one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but that just he's their franchise quarterback, and that's what the market was showing us, and that's what he ended up getting. And Micah Parsons, I think, is one of the best defensive players in the league, so I think he deserves his money. It's just you can't have a team, I'm going to say it again, where 3 guys are making over, you just can't, 50% of your cap, you just can't have that. But that's kind of where we're headed towards. So let me know what you guys think about the Micah Parsons stuff. Do you think they eventually get a deal done? Do you think that this leaks into the regular season? Do you think that he does get traded? Let me know in the comments. So that is pretty much it. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on the video. And, make sure to follow us on social media. All the social media platforms we have are displayed in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can also listen to us as well. Look up Infinite Sports wherever you get your podcasts. So until next time, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.